Hi everyone. Today we'll look at theories of career development. Um, a theory is a framework that is used in understanding a particular concept, and so um, as applied to career counseling, there are some um, frameworks that have been developed, or viewpoints that have been developed over the years that we can use to understand what career counseling is. And there are several of these theories, and I'll just provide like an overview of some of these in this lecture. The first theory that we will look at is called traits and factors theory. Um, the basic components of this theory uh, is that, or the fundamental belief in this theory is that there are traits that um, individuals have that we can identify, and that uh, we could organize these traits into what we call a constellation of factors, and that these traits reflects how people think, feel, and behave, and that using psychometric testing, we could identify these traits and determine the best occupations that are best suited to these individuals. Um, some traits and factors theories that we would look at more in depth include Frank Parsons' theories and others. First of all, we're going to look at Parsons' theory. Frank Parsons' theory state that occupational decision making occurs when people have achieved an accurate understanding of their individual traits. So if they know what their aptitudes are or what really interests them, or what their personal abilities are, what they could do. Um, and if we also have a knowledge of the jobs and the labor market, especially what people do within a certain environment, um, then we could help that person to make rational and objective judgments um, about their traits and the labor market so that we could help them to say, okay, look, these are the jobs that are out there, and these are the traits that you have. And so, based on these traits, um, these are the best jobs, or these jobs have the best fit for your traits in terms of your personality, in terms of your attitudes, and your interests. Another theory that is also part of traits and factors theory is Holland's personality theory. Holland did a study, and in his study, he stated that no, there were six dominant personality types. There were six fundamental personality types, and that if a person is assessed to have any of those theories, any of those personality types, that there is a particular work environment that is best suited for that person. Um, he came up with six personality types and six work environments that would best fit them. So the personality types are realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. And he stated also that people who choose to work in an environment that's similar to their personality are more likely to be successful, more likely to be successful and be satisfied. Um, he developed a career inventory, and which is also something that's in the syllabus, and which is part of the assignments that you will do for this class. He developed an inventory that measures a person's interest level in six occupational areas to help them understand which jobs they're best suited to based on their interests, talents, and aptitudes. Um, The next trait and factor theory is the one that's developed by Dawes, England, and Lofquist, and they talked about a person environment correspondence. Um, and their focus is that um, the more closely a person's abilities, in terms of their skills, knowledge, experience, and attitudes and behavior, correspond with the requirements of the organization, that the more likely they will perform the job and be perceived as satisfactory by the employer. And also, the more closely they reinforce us, which is the rewards of the role or organization correspond to that person's value, a person will seek to satisfy through their work, the more likely that person will perceive the job as satisfied. So it is a reciprocal relationship. So um, on one end is the person's um, alignment with that environment, their work skills, experiences, and aptitudes aligning with those of the organization and finding some satisfaction. And the second part is the work organization or the environment closely the work environment, closely reinforcing that person's needs by providing some type of satisfying work, or by addressing the overall needs of the person, then no, there will be what we call a correspondence. When there is no correspondence, then that person is more likely to be dissatisfied with that work, or may not fitting well in that particular work environment. The next theory is the social learning theories. These focus on a wide range of variables that affect career choice, and so things like social conditioning, the environment in which a person was raised, and how they were raised. There is something that we call occupational structure, which is the jobs that are available in an environment. Um, if the jobs that are available in the environment are within a particular occupation field, growing up, that those are the jobs that you will be interested in. Let me give you an example. If someone grows up in a small town, um, and the jobs that are available are only those that involve working in the factory or going off into the military, those are the jobs that career choices that people would be interested in. Um, Another thing is social position. So, looking at it in terms of a person's family background, if they have more educated people in their family, it is more likely that a person would also have a certain level of education and aspire for jobs uh, that are much more than ordinary, that are much more than basic. Uh, Also, life events would influence a person's career choice, in the sense that if a person has a certain life experience and they find that no, this was something that they wanted to pursue with their life, then that would be something that they'll be interesting. I've seen people that had family members with chronic illness and disabilities, and that kind of like sparked their interest in the medical field, and they eventually went in that direction. And so a person could be influenced by many factors under this theory. It could be genetic, it could be special ability, contextual experiences, which is the experiences they would have within the environments from which they emerge, learning experiences, and skills that they've picked up along the way over time. And so social learning, cognitive theory tends to look at all of this, and not just um, the traits, and not just the factors within the work environment itself. Um, One theory that's prominent among social learning theories is Crombo's learning theory. And he stated that people bring their genetic and socially inherited attributes to the environment, and um, these interact with them to produce a view of themselves, which in turn influence their work related behaviors. And so those genetic traits may be athletic abilities, maybe intellectual skills, ability to comprehend things very fast, that would interact with a particular environment to produce a view of themselves, and that view of that they have of themselves with influence their work related behaviors. And so genetic endowments could be like their gender, their race, physical appearance, intelligence, and talents. Environmental conditions could be cultural, political, economic forces that kind of like that are resident within the person's environment. Um, Another theory that's part of social learning theories is happenstance approach theory, and this suggests that chance events over one's lifespan can have positive and negative effects. So, let's say a person was in high school and probably lost their parents, um, and they were interested in a particular career field. If they don't have a good support system, that person may have to maybe drop out of school and pursue something else other than maybe going on to college to study, let's say, medicine or engineering or some other thing that they were interested. Same thing if a person were to have a scholarship to study, then they may enroll for a degree that they would not ordinarily be interested in doing just because they had some opportunities provided for them. Social learning theory is also focused on the reasons why people prefer particular occupations, which is that people tend to succeed at tasks that they believe that they can perform well, and so they would engage in those. They would engage or they would choose those occupations because they think that that's something they do well. Uh, Another reason is that they have observed a valued model. So maybe you grew up with your dad working in a certain industry and you have a lot of respect for your dad and what he does. And so you kind of like have an interest in that. And that valued model reinforces activities for that person. So you maybe your dad took you to his job and you started off in the same um, place that your dad started off and grow in that job that way. Um, Sometimes, though, similar to what I talked about, which is the valued model, is that a valued friend or relative stress the advantages to you, and so you observe those positive words and images associated with the jobs. There are lots of people that are in the military because your family served in the military, and so that is an example uh, that readily comes to mind. And so the focus of us as counselors is to help the client by sometimes correcting some faulty assumptions that they would have. Sometimes people' perception of a particular job may not be what it is. Just because a person's parents were in a job does not mean that they may be the best fit for that job. And so our role is to help that person to clearly see if that is a good fit for them. Um, Counselors may also need to help a person to learn new skills and interests and help them to identify effective strategies that to address issues that would uh, arise from the interaction between their work and personal lives, and also help them to learn skills for coping um, with change on their jobs as well. One of the theories of social learning, and this is where I will end this lecture here, is that by Gottfredson theory, Gottfredson, and he talks about the theory of circumscription and compromise, and he states that men and women tend to differ in their occupational aspirations, and that's because of um, the social environment in which we live on that sort of prescribe roles. Um, for men and women. And it looks at